Part 31. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 302. After Guan Yuan searched for some information on the computer, he put on his clothes again and jumped eagerly. He felt as if there was a strong explosive force in his body. When he exerted force on his feet, he suddenly jumped up uncontrollably and hit his head to the ceiling. Guan Yuan fell down due to pain, touched his head and sat on the ground. The pain quickly disappeared. What surprised him was his body's jumping ability. If he were to play basketball, dunking would be easy, right? In fact, before Guan Yuan returned to his dormitory, he had discovered the changes in his body in the Lushan Valley and done some simple tests. What is going on? Was he directly evolved by some magical virus that changed his genetic sequence? Or did you get a super plug-in-like system? But there are currently no dialogue boxes, sounds, or control panels. At first, Guan Yuan was a little worried that there was something wrong with his body, but so far, his whole body was filled with that strong and superior feeling, which seemed to be the self-awareness of higher creatures when overlooking lower creatures. Guan Yuan gradually felt that even if he went now, the hospital may not be able to give him answers to his doubts. He is even more afraid that his body will be used for human research. Even if a living body is the most precious and he will not be sliced into pieces, who wants to be studied? Losing freedom, being monitored, being required to cooperate at any time, and even having no way of knowing more about how to deal with the situation, Guan Yuan clearly realized that she could not go to the hospital. Guan Yuan has always been a very mature and stable boy. He has no doubt about the active role of his character and personality in life. But what about the next physical examination? This is the biggest trouble right now. Will my secret be directly exposed during the physical examination? Even though I know it's just a simple test, are the compositions of my body's blood and excreta completely different from those of ordinary people? Guan Yuan thought about it for a while, but there was nothing he could do. He opened the Kidian Chinese app on his mobile phone, found a novel about urban soldiers and kings, and read it. His physical strength was probably as strong as that of a modern setting. They are almost like extreme warrior kings. Let's take a look at how they live. Guan Yuan does not think that his approach is unreliable. After all, in a situation like his own, who can give him guidance? He was entranced by the sight, and it wasn't until Qi Zhendao called again that Guan Yuan came back to his senses and prepared to go to military training. Guan Yuan came back on his own, and the so-called disappearance incident naturally disappeared. Lu Chang'an was not involved in the trouble of any criminal suspect, but Bai Hui still believed that his worries were justified. Lu Chang'an bit Lu Dongbin and did not recognize a good heart. I'm sorry about what happened last night. Guan Yuan exuded a completely different temperament and said to Bai Hui calmly. It doesn't matter. We are all classmates. Just be fine. Bai Hui nodded, but she didn't notice anything different about Guan Yuan. You don't know what I've been through. Guan Yuan raised the corners of his mouth slightly and looked deeply. I hope I can remember the peace at this moment in the future. Neuropathy. Bai Hui looked at Guan Yuan suspiciously, turned away, and looked at her phone. Although she immediately notified Lu Chang'an and told him that Guan Yuan was fine, there was no doubt that Lu Chang'an either didn't read the message or thought she was with him. It doesn't matter, or he simply doesn't want to pay attention to her. Bai Hui hummed and thought of three possibilities. This time it was because of business, and she would definitely not pay attention to him again in the future. Lu Chang'an really just didn't see the message. During the military training in the afternoon, Zhu Huntang, who had asked for leave and was exempted from military training, actually came to see her classmates for military training. She had someone set up a parasol and a deck chair for her, and she lying back on the recliner. Zhongqing took out a bottle of fizz soda from the small refrigerator and poured her a glass of it, very leisurely. Soon Zhu Huntang was taken away by Qin Yinan. There is no doubt that everyone is aware of the existence of privileges, but the student group is not that tolerant of unfair privileges. Zhu Huntang obviously does not understand this, or is used to it. Don't care about other people's resentment of privilege. After disbanding in the afternoon, Wei Xuanyi stopped Lu Chang'an. I discussed it with Yan Qingcheng and planned to organize a night trip to Lushan Mountain with my classmates. Wei Xuanyi took office as a new official and wanted to do something to show off his organizational skills. Very good, Lu Chang'an nodded. Let's go together. You are a local. You can also explain Lushan's scenic spots and popular science to everyone. Didn't the counselor say that Lushan is a green mountain where loyal bones are buried? It's also a time for everyone to understand patriotism education activities, Wei Xuanyi said, pointing to the Lushan mountain behind him. Lu Chang'an didn't want to go at first, but he nodded anyway. This is a voluntary activity. Although everyone does not want to appear unsociable at the beginning of school and would rather participate in team activities, after a day of military training, only 10 people still have the energy to respond to the activities organized by Wei Xuanyi and Yan Qingcheng. Too many. Zhu Huntang was actually among those who signed up to participate. After the news spread that Zhu Huntang also signed up to participate, the number of people expanded to about 20. There is no doubt that hormone secretion can bring stronger mental and physical motivation. After setting a time to gather at the entrance of the scenic spot at the foot of Lushan Mountain, Lu Chang'an went to eat first. Zhu Huntang, who came out of Qin Yinan's office, asked to go to the cafeteria with Lu Chang'an to experience it. Lu Chang'an went not to the canteen in the student apartment, but to another nearby canteen. Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an and watched him prepare food and rice. Why don't you ask me why I don't eat? Lu Chang'an sat down, while Zhu Huntang stood aside and did not sit down, because the tables and chairs in the cafeteria all had a shiny feel, and the fairy skirts were full of fairy spirit. How can you sit down in a place like this? Because it's none of my business. Lu Chang'an looked at his meat dishes. Fortunately, there were actually a few strips of meat, which were not bad, and he was satisfied. Then finish your meal quickly. Zhu Huntang was dissatisfied with Lu Chang'an's slow eating of rice. She came to experience it just to have a look. Zhu Huntang rarely eats outside food, and her pampered stomach can easily be affected by something slightly inappropriate. Diarrhea due to cleanliness or insufficient food quality. Although Zhu Huntang doesn't want to admit it, fairies can also have diarrhea. I just like to eat slowly. Lu Chang'an paid no attention to Zhu Huntang's request, neither speeding up nor deliberately slowing down. You eat slowly, I'm going to go play with Yaya. I'll see you later. Zhu Huntang just came to have a look, and planned to leave after seeing it. You can't eat or sit here, it's really boring. As soon as Zhu Huntang turned around, he saw a boy with messy wet hair and deep eyes walking over. He glanced at Zhu Huntang, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, showing a playful smile, and then looked at Lu Chang'an. The cold is almost gone today, but there will be an outbreak on the 16th. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 303. Guan Yuan did not expect to meet Lu Chang'an in the cafeteria. If he had followed the routine of the protagonist in the novel he read, he could have taken the dinner plate and slapped him directly in the face, watching his juice flowing across his face filled with disbelief. With an angry expression, and then easily crushed him, making him understand the difference in strength like bullying an ant. But now Guan Yuan does not intend to do this, because there is an extremely beautiful and lovely girl here. Without knowing the cause and effect, this beautiful girl may misunderstand him. Lu Chang'an, we meet again, Guan Yuan said calmly. Who are you? Lu Chang'an glanced at him from the corner of his eye and didn't recognize him. Zhu Huntang was originally going to find Qin Yinan, but when he saw a man coming to see Lu Chang'an, he couldn't move immediately. Zhu Huntang likes to watch the fun the most. She discovered that most of the time those who came to Lu Chang'an were girls. Under such circumstances, Even if Lu Chang'an was not very willing to talk to these girls, at least he still had the demeanor of a man and rarely touched him. According to her investigation and observation, if the person who came to Lu Chang'an was a boy, the outcome might be completely different. According to statistics, all men who came to Lu Chang'an with non-friendly intentions were beaten. When Guan Yuan found Zhu Huntang standing aside and watching, he was slightly concerned about her opinion. Lu Chang'an actually didn't recognize him. This made Guan Yuan feel ashamed and said angrily, "We just met last night? I'm from Bai Hui's class, my name is Guan Yuan, I'm also the one who scolded you yesterday. You actually dare to scold Lu Chang'an, you are so awesome, so awesome." Zhu Huntang gloated and applauded from the side. Lu Chang'an glared at Zhu Huntang. Although he would squeeze in to take a look at the excitement in the streets and alleys, he didn't like Zhu Huntang coming to see his excitement. "Didn't you go find Qin Yanan? I want to watch you fight." Zhu Huntang used to like watching UFC and the like, but now he is not interested. He really wants to watch Lu Chang'an fight. "I beat him yesterday. You go find Bai Hui and see if he has a video to show you." Lu Chang'an continued to eat. "Lu Chang'an, I was just attacked by you last night." Guan Yuan became a little angry. "Why should I suffer such insults now? As long as Lu Chang'an takes action again, he will definitely repay the humiliation he suffered today tenfold and 100-fold. Just a few days after school started, I have already beaten a few people." I reflected on it. Recently, the autumn fire has entered my body. The liver and lungs are weak and the fire is strong. The qi and blood are dry and hot, which makes me more irritable. Recently, I have to be quiet and have no interest. There's a fight." Lu Chang'an picked up a piece of meat, looked at it, put it in his mouth and chewed it slowly to show his peace of mind. Zhu Huntang was greatly disappointed. He slid over with his shoes rubbing and stood next to Lu Chang'an, tugging on his sleeves. He persuaded him in a soft voice, "You are our sect leader. People are coming to our door, and you actually swallow your anger? As the saying goes, endure the anger for a moment, the more you think about it, the more angry you become. You must be a person with clear thoughts, just like Qin Shi Huang. If you dare to attack Qin, I will sweep across all directions and unify the world." Lu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Huntang unexpectedly. The third lady had probably read some books recently and her speaking skills were at least as good as those of a primary school student. In this case, under normal circumstances, when others come to the mountain gate to provoke, the first ones to show up are usually ordinary children. "You go ahead." Lu Chang'an pushed Zhu Huntang, who was standing next to him, and the place where his hand landed was on her slender waist back of limbs. Guan Yuan saw this and felt a little angry. When he first saw this beautiful girl, she had successfully attracted his attention. Maybe she would be his girlfriend in the future. The reality turned out to be true. It's different from the novel. According to the plot of the King of Soldiers novel I read, he should become this beautiful girl's live-in fiancé, bodyguard, or something like that. But now it seems that Lu Chang'an has an ambiguous relationship with her, a girl. "Just touch your waist casually." "I don't want it, I don't even have a gun." Zhu Huntang staggered 2 steps, then came back and stood behind Lu Chang'an. "We ordinary gang members just wave the flag and cheer when the sect leader appears. If you win, we just call the sect leader invincible and dominate the world. If you lose, we will surrender immediately and beg for mercy." Lu Chang'an took a look at the ordinary gang members who were so realistic and had no loyalty. Sure enough, it was a wise decision by Shinwu not to give her any position. Lu Chang'an finished his meal and put the plate aside. "Don't flirt in front of me. No matter how arrogant you are now, I will make you regret it." Guan Yuan turned the dinner plate over and slapped it hard. The stainless steel dinner plate was immediately slapped by him. There was a sunken pit mark. "Beauty!" Lu Chang'an shouted and waved to the canteen manager who was looking over and wearing red sleeves. The ant came over and shouted, "What's the matter?" He broke this dinner plate. Lu Chang'an pointed at the dinner plate and complained. Did you do it? The ant was very annoyed and pointed at Guan Yuan angrily. My! It's him, it's him. I saw it with my own eyes, and I testify, Zhu Huntang gloated. Are you a coward? Which class are you in? Do you know that you are destroying public property? Who is your counselor? The ant stretched out her hand and grabbed Guan Yuan's ear. She seemed to be a middle-aged woman with a bad temper. Can't I just apologize? Is that all you need to do to compensate? You are so capable and very strong. Then what else? You are of a bad nature. Watching Guan Yuan being taken away, Lu Chang'an said to Zhu Huntang, you performed so poorly that you were demoted to an intern gang member again. Disgusting. It would be fine if I didn't fire you. Let's go to the meeting point. Where is Zhongqing? I asked her not to follow me. Why do you care about her? You really prefer mature women. Lu Chang'an was too lazy to pay attention to her, and Zhu Huntang didn't care about Lu Chang'an's scornful attitude. He followed him and stepped on his shadow. He thought it would be great if the shadow was Lu Chang'an's real person, so he took off his shoes and stepped on him. After all, he was wearing high heels. It felt a bit too slutty to step on someone with her shoes, but when she stepped on him like this, didn't he just see under her skirt? Fortunately, I was wearing leggings, but I was still a little shy. The two people arrived at the meeting point one after another. Wei Xuanyi and Yan Qingcheng had already arrived first and were sending messages to the classmates who had not arrived. The group of students in our class is so active. If I don't look at it for a while, it will be 99 plus. Zhu Huntang said with emotion while holding his mobile phone. Lu Chang'an didn't know. He just had some opinions on Zhu Huntang's term our class. He always felt that Zhu Huntang went to school for fun. Just like she was an intern gang member of Zhu Fenglai Jianmen, she should also belong to the class. Peripheral people. We are a college of biology, why don't you apply for another interesting department? Lu Chang'an asked. The biology department is fun, killing small animals every day. Lu Chang'an nodded. It seemed that she had some misunderstandings about the biology department, but let her go. It was not difficult for ordinary students to change departments, let alone Zhu Huntang. You are here, Wei Xuanyi greeted him calmly. His identity was somewhat different now and he needed to adjust his mentality. He couldn't avoid Zhu Huntang when he was working as a classmate. Hi, everyone, I think I also want to participate in more classmates' activities and get to know everyone better. Zhu Huntang greeted everyone cutely again. That's quite welcome, Yan Qingcheng said to Zhu Huntang with a smile. Girls prefer to look at beautiful women. They always feel that the other person looks like the beautiful girl in their dreams, which makes people envious. Zhu Huntang also envies Yan Qingcheng's long legs, but this envy is not very enthusiastic. After all, the long legs of buildings 1 and 2 of Beilong Center are unrivaled, and Yan Qingcheng's are probably a little longer than hers. So. You. Zhu Huntang pointed at Wei Xuanyi, a little confused, and then when he thought about it, he couldn't help but say in a reproachful tone, I made an appointment with my classmates to eat hot pot in my restaurant that day, why didn't you come? Wei Xuanyi's cheeks turned red. Lu Chang'an patted Wei Xuanyi's shoulder to express his sympathy. Wei Xuanyi finally calmed down and pretended that he didn't hear anything. What day? Is there a class reunion? Yan Qingcheng asked, regretting that she was not invited to attend. It happened a long time ago, Zhu Huntang said. Long ago? Wei Xuanyi walked aside to talk to other students. We didn't have many courses during my freshman year, and everyone was quite enthusiastic and active. There should be a lot of organized activities. If you are willing, you can also actively participate. Yan Qingcheng was very enthusiastic about Zhu Huntang. When Zhu Huntang became like this, girls can inspire everyone's enthusiasm. Secondly, Zhu Huntang is really cute. She has a cooing voice and a cute smile. The most important thing is that her dress really makes people think she is a beautiful fairy. I want to follow Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang pointed at Lu Chang'an, who stood still and looked up at Lushan, which meant that she only participated when Lu Chang'an participated. Yan Qingchen nodded in understanding but actually didn't understand at all. Lu Chang'an has a girlfriend, is this appropriate for you? He is my boss, Zhu Huntang added. Zhu Huntang usually doesn't care whether others misunderstand her, but occasionally explaining it can make the third lady appear to be considerate, delicate, and gentle. Call me master. Lord Master. Get rid of it, my lord. Grown-ups. You have been kicked out of this house. Yuck. I rejoined myself. Yan Qingchen looked at the insane conversation between Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang, rolled her eyes, and forwarded the latest Lushan map to her classmates. Attention everyone, if you get separated, just call or follow the map to walk back. Don't go into the Lushan Valley. It used to be an outdoor shooting base for a photo studio, and there are still many plastic models and dolls there. It's very scary without lights at night. Yan Qingchen sent a message and asked Zhu Huntang to pay attention to the messages in the group, because Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang don't look like Anfen people, and generally those who need special attention in the class are these people are the same from elementary school to university. This is the first update today, and there will be more tonight. Thank you for your monthly votes, thank you for your recommendations, and thank you for your generous rewards. All kinds of requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 304. Lushan prohibits tourists from entering at 6 o'clock in the evening, but there is no restriction on when tourists can leave. There are not only hotels on the top of the mountain, but also various cafes, tea houses, restaurants, and shops. The entire scenic spot is not just for climbing. Just down the mountain, there are also well-known attractions such as Lushan Academy and Eating. There were 24 people who signed up, and the number actually turned out to be 18. The boys and girls got to know each other very quickly, and no longer formed a small circle based on dormitories like at the beginning. However, although many boys would glance at Zhu Huntang from time to time, but no one actually came to strike up a conversation with her. After all, not everyone was as confident as Wei Xuanyi and Sun Shutong. Unlike other students who became active after hearing that Zhu Huntang was also participating, Sun Shutong gave up his original intention to participate. Qin Ziqiang originally wanted to be a man who silently followed behind and paid attention to the beautiful girl who broke through the dimensional wall, but when he thought about it, he still felt that it was too much. It was more important to swipe the map, save some diamonds and draw cards, so I gave up. A group of people started to climb Lushan Mountain in the shadow of dusk. Some students came to Junxia during the summer vacation. In fact, they had already been to Lushan Mountain once, so they started to explain it to other students. Only Yan Qingchen seemed to really understand the revolutionary background of Lushan Mountain. She was very interested in the story, and she chatted with Lu Chang'an all the time, but she was very confused. Lu Chang'an often told anecdotes and allusions that she didn't know where they came from. When she asked him about the source, he said they didn't, but they were all true and made people feel that very true. Zhu Huntang is not very interested in these things. It has nothing to do with whether she is from Taiwan or not, but she can't tell whether it was Jing Kai or Prince Dan who assassinated the king of Qin. For Miss Zhu San, history is not interesting in the first place. Except for using unpopular historical books as selfie props, Zhu Huntang's life has little overlap with historical knowledge. Zhu Huntang chatted with several girls enthusiastically, giving them tips on skincare, as well as useful beauty apps and filters. In this aspect, she successfully gained the admiration of other girls, and she was very happy. I just called someone to send each female student in the class a skincare gift package tomorrow. Of course it is Zhongqing who handles this kind of thing for her. It is said that Mrs. Zuzan is not in Juncha currently, so it is natural for Zhuntang to do whatever he wants. Zhongqing has no objection, as long as Zhuntang does not give away the Bailong Center casually. Giving such a small gift is not even qualified to be a prodigal deed. On the way, everyone met a champagne-colored Bentley sports car. The car slowed down and drove slowly past the crowd. The boy who knew about cars sighed, and Zhu Huntang praised it a few times. What a beautiful car. Yan Qingcheng was at the head of the team. She turned around and looked through the front window. She vaguely felt that although the driver inside could not see clearly, the outline of his face felt a bit familiar. He couldn't remember it for a while, let alone how he knew such a rich person. Where are people? I didn't think much about it. After arriving at the top of Lushan Mountain and watching the night view of Juncha together on the viewing platform, Yan Qingcheng announced that everyone could move around freely, but they must pay attention to safety and look at the map or call if they get lost. So everyone dispersed. In fact, many scenic spots were closed at night. Walking down the roads on Lushan Mountain, you can go to the other two universities at the foot of Juncha, and you can also see the night view of the development zone on the edge of Juncha. There is an art center that looks like a flying saucer. At night, it really looks like a huge alien flying object staying under two tall buildings. It is mysterious and spectacular. Many people only go to some fresh style shops on Lushan Mountain. Zhu Huntang has been here many times. Of course, she is not interested in seeing the scenery. She sneaked into the hotel when no one was paying attention and went upstairs to find Qin Yinan. She was originally looking for Qin Yinan today, and she planned to look for him in the cafeteria, but she only met Guan Yuan, who was looking for trouble. Lu Chang'an didn't have a good dinner, so he decided to go to Qin Yinan's house to have dinner. He walked in from the side door of the hotel and happened to meet Qin Yinan parking the car and walking over. "Why did you come up here? We saw your car on the road." Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang both saw the champagne-colored Bentley driven by Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan didn't stop to say hello. Of course, she didn't want her students to see her driving such a luxury car. Although it might be discovered sooner or later, there was no need to be so high profile as soon as school started. If they found out later, they would find out. Both Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang could understand what Qin Yinan was thinking at that time. Naturally, it was impossible for them to introduce to their classmates that it was your counselor's car. Don't look at the fact that your counselor earns a salary of several thousand yuan in school, but drives a car worth millions. The sports car. This may confuse the boys and girls who still live in the ivory tower. The teacher drives a multi-million sports car to work, and some of the classmates come to school by helicopter. It turns out that there are so many rich people around them. Are you the only one who is poor in the world? I was thinking about it in the car for a while. Should I call you and ask you to come for dinner? Qin Yinan didn't expect that Lu Chang'an would come to her by himself. He was a little happy after the accident. It felt like the last time he came here was a long time ago. Something happened. You don't have to think about it for so long, right? You've been here for at least half an hour. Lu Chang'an laughed. I still have to think about what materials I have at home and what dishes I can make. Qin Yinan didn't think there was anything wrong with her delaying for so long without calling. Women are always more careful and considerate than men when doing things. Zhu Huntang went up first. Let's go. I haven't decided what to cook yet. You can check it out later. You seem to have a leaf in your hair. Qin Yinan touched it with her backhand, but she didn't touch it. Her hair was dark and thick, and her shawl was scattered on her back. It was not convenient to touch all her hair with her backhand, not to mention that she was holding a bag in one hand. Lu Chang'an brushed her hair, and the leaves fell down, sliding down her waist. The waist of Qin Yinan's pants today was relatively low, and a little skin on her lower back was exposed when she walked around, so the leaves fell into her pants and got stuck halfway. With quick eyes and quick hands, Lu Chang'an pinched the front end of the leaf and took it out. "What are you doing? It's so itchy." Qin Yinan's cheeks turned red and her body trembled. She didn't turn her head to look behind her. She only felt that the skin on her lower back was touched, and it felt strange. She didn't know if Lu Chang'an was there. "Make trouble." The leaves fell. "Your pants are a little loose. Have you lost weight recently?" Lu Chang'an took the leaves and flicked his fingers. The leaves, stained with the fragrance of Qin Yinan's skin, fluttered away among the scattered maple trees after autumn. It seems so Qin Yinan was a little happy to hear such good news from Lu Chang'an. This was even happier than when she found out that she had lost weight, because she felt that she had gained some weight during the summer vacation, but now she seems to have recovered a little. She didn't have the nerve to ask him last time if he felt she was heavier than an average girl when he held her. "Then eat more today. Do you see how rare Zhou Dongdong looks like that?" Lu Chang'an suggested. Qin Yinan was stunned and speechless. Is his aesthetic a legacy of the prosperous Tang dynasty? Isn't his little girl An Nuan skinny and skinny? Of course, An Nuan is not skinny and skinny, but when it comes to women, if they are a little bit emotional, it is normal to magnify it 10 times or 100 times. Qin Yinan opened the elevator and the two of them walked in together. Standing far away, Wei Xuanyi and Yan Qingcheng, who were hiding in the pavilion and saw this scene, looked at each other. "That car belongs to Teacher Qin," Wei Xuanyi was shocked. Although it could be seen from Qin Yinan's speech, behavior, and dress that this kind of woman's living environment was absolutely superior, she did not expect that she could really afford it. A woman with a luxury car worth millions will come to the university to be an ordinary counselor. She met us when she came up, but she slowed down the car and left without saying hello to her classmates, Yan Qingcheng said thoughtfully. She probably wants to keep a low profile and doesn't want her classmates to know. "We can't tell this matter," Wei Xuanyi nodded and suggested steadily. Yan Qingcheng didn't say anything, just looked at the hotel in front of her. Wei Xuanyi also reacted, and his expression gradually became incredulous, because he also saw that Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan were acting intimately and ambiguously just now, and this scene took place in a hotel. If this scene had taken place elsewhere, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. It was just Lu Chang'an's fingers brushing Qin Yinan's hair, and then his fingers fell down and probably touched Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan had a shy and angry expression. Yan Qingcheng looked at Wei Xuanyi's expression and knew that Wei Xuanyi had thought of something, so she hurriedly turned around and walked down the mountain. They went to the hotel. Wei Xuanyi caught up with Yan Qingcheng. While he was dumbfounded, a certain fire in his heart began to burn. Why? Why? Lu Chang'an is such a blessing. "It's none of your business, mind your own business," Yan Qingcheng recalled for no reason what Lu Chang'an said to her that day. "It's none of your business. No wonder Teacher Qin didn't want to be seen by us when he went up the mountain. No wonder Lu Chang'an was actively willing to go up the mountain today. It turned out that they had an appointment. Oh my God, Teacher Qin also said that he and Lu Chang'an were cousins. I just said that. Is there a cousin who is like a little daughter-in-law who serves her husband?" She prepared books, sheets, and quilt covers for Lu Chang'an. "Shut up, you'd better not say a word about what happened today. Lu Chang'an beat 2 people at the beginning of the school year, and nothing happened. If he finds out about you and gossips behind his back, you will definitely be the 3rd person he beats." Yan Qingcheng warned carefully. She didn't care about Wei Xuanyi, she just didn't want Wei Xuanyi to implicate her. "What's more, these are all your imagination. They are cousins and they appeared in the hotel together. Maybe it was just something. I didn't say anything." Yan Qingcheng saw Wei Xuanyi's uneasy expression and said, "Disconnect yourself again." Wei Xuanyi had a complicated expression and followed Yan Qingcheng without saying a word, while looking back at the hotel sign on the top of the mountain. I recommend an eye-catching new historical book, Kaihei. The author's historical knowledge is quite good, and he has also considered whether the small details are reasonable. The most rare thing is that the protagonist's starting identity is from the Weizhou Banner Army, and the style of dialogue description is also very consistent. I think the books I recommend are all very good, and of course, the books they recommend are also very good. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 305. Wei Xuanyi looked at Yan Qingqing's back, and then thought of Qin Yinan's back. The feeling of a mature woman was definitely not comparable to that of a young and slightly frail girl. Zhu Huntang is just good looking and has the most popular cute temperament. When it comes to figure, Qin Yinan is unparalleled. Boys of this age care about women's faces, but what makes them suddenly hotter is the seductive feeling in mature women that is ready to move in their bodies. How can Lu Chang'an be so virtuous? Anyuan's figure is also excellent. It can be seen that he feels full of energy from regular exercise, but his development is not as good as Qin Yinan's, and it is not comparable to the Yan Qingcheng in front of him. Yan Qingcheng, what do you think of Lu Chang'an? Wei Xuanyi followed Yan Qingcheng, not in the mood to wander around the scenic spot anymore. Not familiar, Yan Qingcheng said in a stiff tone. I don't know why, but when talking about Lu Chang'an, the first thing that Yan Qingcheng thought of was that he looked at her that day, then looked at his own orange juice, continued to drink the orange juice, and then the image of telling her it's none of your business. I didn't see it. He is probably the second generation of rich people. In fact, I should have thought of it a long time ago. How can someone who is very familiar with people like Zhu Huntang be an ordinary person? It seems that this Hunan University also relies on the back door, so it is a fool's errand. Don't live in the dormitory, and fight during military training. Wei Xuanyi is not willing to give up his dignity. If the other party only has family background, then he can at least be proud of his academic ability and achievements. Yan Qingcheng didn't want to offend anyone, so she still smiled and said, "You are wrong. I applied for Hunan University because there is an education fund that provides scholarships for Hunan University admissions. For example, the top 300 science students in our province have applied for Hunan University. The scholarship, of course, is from Xiongnan province. After I arrived at the school, I asked the teacher to confirm this matter. I looked at the list and found that Lu Chang'an was among the top 50 in the college entrance examination in Xiongnan. Top 50, Wei Xuanyi looked at Yan Qingcheng in shock. Was Yan Qingcheng a liar? Yan Qingcheng had many reasons for lying, but Wei Xuanyi didn't believe it. Why didn't he apply for another school among the top 50? I don't know about this. People like this, they probably don't need to pursue academic background. Yan Qingcheng frowned and stretched out stubbornly. In short, admit that others are better than you. There is nothing difficult to accept to be better, just work hard yourself. Saying what others do behind your back won't change anything. Wei Xuanyi didn't listen to Yan Qingcheng's words. He just found it unbelievable. How could such a person exist? What makes him better, more dazzling and more destined? If I had a different background than him, would I be inferior to him? Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan went upstairs. Zhu Huntang was lying on the sofa watching TV. The elevator door opened. Hearing Lu Chang'an's voice, he quickly pulled up his skirt and sat up. You still have to pay attention to your image in front of the door owner. Although you are wearing leggings, your legs are white and beautiful. It is really embarrassing to be seen by others and fantasize about the skirt of a fairy. I'm hungry, Zhu Huntang said with his hands on his knees. I'm going to cook, Qin Yinan said quickly. Zhu Huntang laughed. With Lu Chang'an here, this woman always likes to act virtuous and can be fully utilized by Zhu Huntang to point fingers at her. Otherwise, if he usually said this, Qin Yinan would definitely let her go to the refrigerator or snack cabinet by herself. Go and look for something to eat. Therefore, it is not very important what your own talents are. What is important is to have the ability to appropriately use the environment and timing to control the actions of others. Zhu Huntang thought so, feeling satisfied and confident in himself. You're so free. Lu Chang'an twitched the corner of his mouth, took a bottle of orange juice and sat down to drink it. I want it too. Zhu Huntang stretched out his hand. Go get it yourself. Help me get it, you're close to the water tank. No. Zhu Huntang thought about it. How can he make use of talents like Lu Chang'an? Forget it. At first he wanted to accept him as his younger brother, but now he is an ordinary gang member. No, he is an intern gang member everyone, but he was so shameless that he had to rejoin. So Zhu Huntang realized the reality in frustration, went to get a bottle of drink, and then ran to the kitchen to see what Qin Yinan was preparing for dinner. In the evening, Qin Yinan made a large meat platter, which included a piece of original pork knuckle, which was caramelized on the outside and plump on the inside. It was not greasy in the mouth. The sauce was actually the key. Qin Yinan added a little wine, which made the aroma more mellow. Hunan cuisine is so soft and chewy, and there is also a roasted pork ribs and sausage mix, which uses ready-made boxed sausages. There are Nuremberg sausages, Munich sausages, garlic pork sausages, and chicken sausages. And cheese pork sausage. It fully illustrates that the quality of life and a good enough and big enough refrigerator cannot be separated. Although I was a little disappointed with the large amount of meat dishes, considering that there was no preparation in advance, it was not easy to cook such a delicious dish in a hurry, not to mention that it would be nice to eat some. There is so much nonsense to dislike this and that. This is Lu Chang'an's realization. Zhu Huntang has expressed a lot of opinions, but that's all for summarizing the German-style meals. It is better than many German restaurants. I don't know why someone would open a German restaurant. Grandpa, can a Nuan do housework? Zhu Huntang asked in a low voice as he watched Qin Yinan go to the kitchen to clean up. Yes. That's more or less the same. Zhu Huntang nodded critically. Actually, I think Yaya is more virtuous. Although she is suspected of showing off in front of you, she is essentially a more traditional woman. Lu Chang'an glanced at Zhu Huntang. I am not a traditional woman, I am a traditional fairy. Zhu Huntang immediately understood the meaning in Lu Chang'an's eyes. He felt that she should be aware of her own lack of virtuousness and tradition when commenting on Qin Yinan. What is a traditional fairy? Lu Chang'an flipped through several old-school fairy tales in his mind, looking for the image of a traditional fairy. Traditional fairies use mana to solve problems, and the basic manifestation of mana is that they can achieve all their needs without doing it themselves. But that's what I am like. I have never been able to achieve all my needs without doing it myself, so I am traditional. Fairy Zhu Huntang's logic is very clear and makes sense. Lu Chang'an usually doesn't have an extremely strong or urgent desire to do something. He is very patient and can figure it out slowly, but now he wants Zhu Huntang to ascend to heaven immediately. Shouldn't fairies ascend to heaven? Don't look at me like this. When Zhu Huntang saw Lu Chang'an's eyes, he immediately became wary and crossed his hands in front of his chest. Lu Chang'an let out a breath. At this time, his phone vibrated. Just as he didn't want to pay attention to Zhu Huntang, he took out his phone and took a look. Our Zhuzhufenglai sword sect is about to take action. Lu Chang'an sat up. It seemed that the Zhuzhufenglai sword sect's first action was no longer due to his physical examination. I recommend starting from Guhuo Bird. This book is about the same period as Xiahua. It is a very imaginative type. It is very amazing and highly praised. The most touching thing about online articles is the unfettered imagination. I wanted to break out today, but I'm still a little dizzy. Now that I've gone home, I can still get back the feeling of typing at home. The current monthly votes are 6,320 votes. The deadline is 6 p.m. tomorrow at 6,520 votes. The guaranteed update is 5,000 words and 6,620 monthly votes. Updated a super large chapter of 10,000 words. Thanks to San Laoxiong for your generous reward, a new leader has been added to this book. Thank you all for your support, votes, and rewards. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 306. Zhu Huntang moved over to the sofa with excitement, grabbed Lu Chang'an's pants, and looked at him with shining eyes. What for? Lu Chang'an pinched her fingers and pushed them away, then patted his pants. What equipment do you want me to provide? Do you want a helicopter? In addition to the big slow baby, I also have a very flexible little cute one. It is the best at tracking and dodging in the city. If you don't want a helicopter, then fly mine. Car, Qinyanan's car is big and stupid. Do you want people? I have many van men, no, men in black. Zhu Huntang became an intern gang member again, even though there were outsiders provoking fights. I may rebel at any time, but I said from the beginning that I could be a fat sheep. Lu Chang'an pressed Zhu Huntang's head on the sofa, who was about to stand up, shaked his head, no need, Qinyanan's car will be fine. Then I'll go to. Zhu Huntang was still very active and wanted to participate. The fat sheep are all kept in the back mountains to graze. Which organization have you seen lead a fat sheep into battle? This does not mean that once the action fails, even your own fat sheep will become someone else's. Once it falls into the hands of the enemy, he will definitely rebel immediately. Don't deny it, you said it yourself this afternoon. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Zhu Huntang pouted and hesitated for a long time. He really regretted exposing himself too early this afternoon, so he sat on the sofa with his hands together and was angry with Lu Chang'an. Qinyanan packed up the dinner plates and walked out. The car was driven away. Lu Chang'an said to Qinyanan. No way. Qinyanan walked to the window and took a look at her car, which was parked on the side of the hotel lobby. The one parked in front of my house. Only then did Qinyanan react and glanced at Zhu Huntang seriously. What are you looking at me doing? Is there something that cannot be said? Zhu Huntang was angry, and Qinyanan's eyes also made her unhappy. Qinyanan didn't doubt Zhu Huntang or didn't believe her, but subconsciously felt that it was best for Zhu Huntang not to get involved in this matter. Who did this? Qinyanan looked at Lu Chang'an. Have no idea. No matter what, let's adjust the surveillance first. I'll find someone to cooperate with the investigation. Qinyanan had no intention of calling the police. If he could direct it or get people to cooperate with the investigation without following the procedures, then of course he shouldn't follow the procedures. No need, I know where the car is. Lu Chang'an shook his head. Qinyanan was relieved, but at the same time he was a little confused about the details of the matter. Is it that dark car that looks like a big coffin board? Although Zhu Huntang was angry, it was impossible for her not to get involved, so she couldn't help but ask. She had been to Lu Chang'an's house, of course she had seen that car many times, and she also knew that Qinyanan personally escorted it here when he came to Juncha in May. Qinyanan nodded. Let's not talk about why the car disappeared. The most important thing is that it must be found. The car is not important. What is important is the coffin inside. Although it feels like Lu Chang'an has not revealed some of the secrets involved in the coffin. Tell her, but Qinyanan can also imagine that this coffin is different from the national treasure enshrined in the museum. It is another type of national treasure that cannot be made public or open to research. Qinyanan's various conditions were undoubtedly related to the coffin. She felt that even because of herself, the whereabouts of the coffin could not be unknown. Zhu Huntang said that the car looked like a big coffin board, not because she knew there was a coffin inside. Seeing Qinyanan's expression, Zhu Huntang felt that it was not an ordinary armored transport vehicle, otherwise it would cost hundreds of thousands to hundreds of thousands. It's just something worth 10,000, so just throw it away. There's nothing to be nervous about. Zhu Huntang wanted to get involved even more. Then let's go now. Although Qin Yinan was concerned, he still had to respect Lu Chang'an's opinion. Because Lu Chang'an always had the same expression, Qin Yinan couldn't tell whether he was wise or not as usual. Okay, Lu Chang'an looked at the phone again. We need an off-road vehicle with a high chassis. I do. Zhu Huntang immediately raised her hand. Although she didn't actually know how many cars there were in her garage or what types of cars they had, she thought there were some. If not, it means the people below were incompetent. Okay, was the car driven to the countryside or a mountainous area? Qin Yinan asked. Not yet, but it is very possible. The route they drove was to the west of Shonan province, where there is a mountainous road heading south. As long as they get off the expressway and take an ordinary road, your car will have trouble driving. Lu Chang'an turned to look at Zhu Huntang. Little Yang, it's not that I won't take you, but this tracking may take a whole night's drive. Can you bear it? Zhu Huntang immediately became happy when he heard Lu Chang'an's tone that he was not so determined not to take her with him. Am I such a person who can't endure hardship? Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan both gave her a look of approval. It doesn't matter, she can go if she wants to. Anyway, she knows a lot of secrets. If something goes wrong with her one day, I will kill her and silence her. Lu Chang'an walked out the door nonchalantly. Zhu Huntang hesitated for a moment and grabbed Qin Yinan's finger. What? It's too late for you to regret now. Of course, Qin Yinan's attitude towards Zhu Huntang is somewhat different from Lu Chang'an's. For Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang may not even be considered an important friend, but Zhu Huntang and Qin Yinan are together sisters who grew up from nap to adulthood, usually talk freely. Qin Yinan is so old, there is always some plot of elder sister loving and protecting her younger sister. He won't really kill me to silence me, right? Zhu Huntang became a little worried. She didn't want to betray Lu Chang'an foolishly. From the time she wanted to conquer Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang's ideas were generally correct. Lu Chang'an was like this as a superhuman. Zhu Huntang must not be the only one who knows his secret. The reason why people still treat her knowing his secret so lightly is definitely not because they trust her. It's possible, so you have to be good. I can't protect you. Qin Yinan pulled Zhu Huntang away. I'm not that stupid. Keeping secrets is more beneficial to me than leaking them. Zhu Huntang thought about it and wasn't too worried. What's more, no one would believe Lu Chang'an's secret if he told it casually. Qin Yinan and Zhu Huntang caught up with Lu Chang'an. When she can't bear the long journey, I will knock her unconscious and fasten her seat belt. Lu Chang'an first told Zhu Huntang frankly. No, Zhu Huntang was confident. Let's take Yaya's car down the mountain first. I'll have someone send the car over and change cars at the parking lot at the foot of Lushan Mountain. Lu Chang'an had no objection. He never was picky when someone helped him. Qin Yinan drove down the mountain and waited in the parking lot for about 10 minutes. The car Zhu Huntang called was delivered from her special garage in Bailong Center to the foot of Lushan Mountain in Hedong. Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan also understood why Zhu Huntang was so confident that he could endure the long journey, because this was a super luxurious civilian armored off-road vehicle. In addition to explosion-proof and antivirus systems, oxygen supply systems and standard satellite positioning and other devices, the cabin, the two seats inside are large and comfortable, and the perfect wrapping allows the people sitting on them to lie down safely inside even if the car rolls over a few times. As long as this car doesn't sink to the bottom of the sea and even the positioning system can't find it, no matter how dangerous we are, we can be rescued. Zhu Huntang thought about it and was still impressed by this car. Zhu Xianshu, I feel that even though Zhu Huntang often came to the mainland before, he mostly visited big cities and was with Qin Yinan. But later when Zhu Huntang wanted to live in Junxia in the central and western regions of the mainland, Zhu Xianshu had to be on Zhu Huntang's travel list. With such a car inside, Zhu Xianshu has always been with the old lady. Her impression of the mainland is also influenced by film and television dramas such as The Suppression of Bandits in Western Hunan. Can't you find a car with an average size? Do you need to read the manual before driving this car? Qin Yinan could complain to Zhu Huntang at any time. Didn't the driver leave? Just let him drive. You guys sit in the back and I'll lead the way from the co-pilot, Lu Chang'an said. When Qin Yinan saw Lu Chang'an's arrangement, of course he had no objection. Zhu Huntang sat in the back obediently. She was originally meant to sit in the boss's seat, and she was not used to sitting in other seats. The driver is a young man in his 30s, with a light mustache. He looks strong and fits the car well. He doesn't talk much and is professionally polite and respectful. You said, we are now how to go. Lu Chang'an showed the driver a location on his phone. The driver found the location in the navigation and started the car. He noticed that there was more than one location on Lu Chang'an's phone, and he thought that this location would not be the last location. Take a picture for me, I want the feeling of a high-level political elite. Zhu Huntang gave Qin Yinan his mobile phone from behind. Many heads of state or politicians who are under threat are traveling or appearing in critical areas. We'll choose such a car. Which high-level political elite would wear such a cute princess dress? Qin Yinan rolled her eyes at her and returned the phone to her. Now Qin Yinan was not in the mood to play around. What Qin Yinan was wondering was who stole the car. Me. If I became the leader of Taiwan, I would still dress like this, Zhu Huntang said disapprovingly. But now you are trying to fake that feeling. The feeling you want to fake is not what you feel. I'll let you take a picture for me. Fine. After taking the photo, Zhu Huntang used various filters to edit it. However, he felt that it was not the look he wanted, so he forgot about it. He just found a pink filter and used it, then posted it to the class group. Qin Yinan received the reminder, because she was also in the class group. In order to take care of Zhu Huntang's college life, she was worried that she would cause trouble, so Qin Yinan set a special focus on Zhu Huntang in the group. She also paid special attention to Lu Chang'an, but Lu Chang'an has never posted a word in the group so far. Smelly Qin Yinan took one look and turned off her phone. It was useless for her to think about the coffin now. With Zhu Huntang and the driver here, it was not convenient to discuss it with Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang chuckled, leaned over and put his arms around Qin Yinan's shoulders, took a photo, and sent it to the class group. Qin Yinan didn't have time to stop her. It wasn't because Zhu Huntang didn't retouch the photo. In fact, she was good looking enough and would look good even without retouching. What's more, the key to the photo was the lighting, and the light in the carriage was also very bright. After Zhu Huntang posted the photo, he ignored the compliments from the students in the group. He never expected that someone would see the photo and have some obscene thoughts about whether it was a threesome. They have already entered the highway, and we will not be able to catch up for a while, Lu Chang'an turned around and said. They still dare to get on the highway? Qin Yinan was a little confused. Aren't they afraid that we will block the road? Then they will have trouble flying. They must have changed cars by now, but they didn't expect to be able to locate it. However, we don't know what kind of car they changed or what the license plate number is, so we can only follow the location and chase it. Qin Yinan actually thought of this when he finished speaking. Of course, the purpose of stealing a car is not the car. No matter how greedy and bold the car thief is, he will not steal an armored transport vehicle. Now they should have changed the coffin to another vehicle. Since Lu Chang'an can be located, if he cooperates with the inspection, he can be found relatively easily, but it seems that Lu Chang'an has other plans. The driver drove on the highway and soon arrived at the area near Dongting Lake. Lu Chang'an remembered that he hadn't been to Dongting Lake for a long time. When he took a vacation, he hoped to take an Nuan to Dongting Lake to catch fish. Even though Dongting Lake is as vast as it has been for hundreds of years, if the lake never bottoms out one day, then there will be huge water beasts hidden in the depths that never leave, even if the creatures in the water are fish, if it is so big that it can be called a water beast with a hint of demonic aura. Whales and the like are of course very big, but humans are not unfamiliar with them, so no one calls them water beasts. The undiscovered spherical tentacled creatures in the Mariana Trench can of course also be called water beasts. I just don't know how they are living now, whether they are happy or not, or whether they are still used to caressing the same kind with countless tentacles, and then get 100 times more pleasure because each tentacle has a complete set of desires. Maybe they have evolved, maybe they have degenerated. Lu Chang'an was not thinking about this. He glanced at the latest positioning he had just received and found that the other party had already transported the coffin to Gongjiaja. The coffin is still on the highway. The highway distance from Junxia to Gongjiaja is more than 300 kilometers, but they don't know if their ultimate destination is Gongjiaja. No matter how good the car is, long-distance driving can still make people fall asleep easily. When the car drove to the birthplace of Jinchi beef noodles, Zhu Huntang was already asleep. Qin Yinan was definitely in good spirits. She used her mobile phone to send messages and chat with Lu Chang'an. It's just that Lu Chang'an was too slow to reply to messages. He actually kept chatting with the driver about cars, not about luxury cars and sports cars, but about car repair and manufacturing. Fortunately, the driver was able to have a good conversation with Lu Chang'an. In the past, it seemed as if he had really been an auto mechanic. Because there are not enough tickets as of 6 p.m., and in fact, there are still none, Xiahua will just add a few hundred words less. I'm so sleepy. In fact, I'm still feeling dizzy today. The recent hot and cold weather is really unbearable. I have to change the climate to code. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 307. Those heading west may be monks, white horses, monkeys, pigs, and porters, or they may be movies. What is still fresh in my memory is that a certain movie of the same name may not have any depth or profound expression, but the heroine is impressive. Not many women can be described as headlights. In comparison, a woman like Qin Yinan has a greater advantage. Her skin cannot be cut with a knife, so it is difficult for gravity to do anything damaging. There were very few bumps on the highway, and Zhu Huntang slept comfortably. She was used to being taken care of under any circumstances, so she did not cover herself with a quilt. Qin Yinan took the quilt and covered her with it, and then patted the woman who was talking to the driver from behind. The car tire production talked about rubber raw materials, and then talked about Lu Chang'an, the plantation slave owner, and the history of imperialism in carving up Africa. You're not lost, are you? Qin Yinan asked. No, Lu Chang'an said with certainty. If the other party has been on the highway, it is impossible to lose him. If he gets off the highway, it is impossible to run fast on the Gongjiaja road. It will be easier to catch up. Qin Yinan nodded assuredly and said to Lu Chang'an, can you talk about something interesting? If there is someone talking all the time next to you, and they are talking about something that you are not interested in at all, it is definitely a buzzing noise. No, Lu Chang'an looked at his phone again and said to the driver, you can almost drive it for me. Get off the expressway and drive to the city. Find a place to stay. If we don't come to drive for you tomorrow morning, you will go back to Junxia by yourself. The driver looked back at Zhu Huntang. Although this was not the third lady's order, the third lady could sleep peacefully here, and with the eldest daughter of the Qin family here, he didn't have to worry about Lu Chang'an doing anything wrong to the third lady. Okay, I'll inform Zhongsu. The driver nodded. This is a necessary procedure and a polite warning. Lu Chang'an didn't take it seriously. He felt that the aura that Zhu Huntang exuded was more tempting as food than she was as a woman. After more than 3 hours of long distance, we finally got off the highway and entered the Gongjiaja boundary. We dropped the driver off near the city and Lu Chang'an took over and continued on. During the Shang and Zhou dynasties, Gongjiaja belonged to Jingchu. During the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period, it was the central Guizhou province of Chu. It was originally named Daong and was the seat of the Guiong kingdom. The strata here are complex and diverse, creating unique local landscapes. The most distinctive one is the quartz sandstone peak. The forest landform is rare in the world. Do you think this car has a monitoring or recording system? Lu Chang'an asked without looking back. It must be there. Qin Yinan was very sure. It is installed on every car owned by Zhu Huntang. However, without remote control, the data will only be recorded locally, and generally only she has the authority to call it after uploading. Lu Chang'an said no more. Lu Chang'an just looked at his phone from time to time. Qin Yinan wanted to know how he achieved tracking and positioning. Was he prepared? But Lu Chang'an's question just now also reminded her not to talk casually, so Qin Yinan had to endure it. The car passed through the city and headed towards the mountains. The mountains in Gongjiaja are different from most places. In people's minds, a mountain is roughly in the shape of a triangle, with high, low, large and small layers stacked together to form a mountain range. The mountains in Gongjiaja are like forests, with sticks stuck into the ground one by one, just like playing with chalk, taken out of the box and placed one by one. Such unique terrain is rare on the entire Earth, so a long time ago a movie that reflected alien landforms came to Gongjiaja for filming and prototype processing. The car drove to a cliff and stopped. This is one of the major scenic spots in Gongjiaja. There are many pillar mountains in the scenic area. They are inserted into the ground like pillars, so they are called pillar mountains. Zuzhu Mountain does not have a gentle or steep slope for people to walk up, only straight up and down cliffs, and the top of the mountain is not a triangular peak like an ordinary mountain, but a flat top, or some with different ups and downs, but the overall it is completely different from ordinary mountains. What is shocking is that even on this seemingly isolated mountaintop, there are actually indigenous people living here, self-sufficient like a paradise. It is not known whether Lu Chang'an, an aboriginal, was on the top of the pillar where Lu Chang'an stopped his car, but the final location was indeed here. This is the end of the road. Except for a 20-meter high pillar with carved dragons and phoenixes, there are only a few bare stones around, and there is nothing else at first glance. Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan got out of the car and looked around. Finally, Lu Chang'an looked up above his head. How could it disappear out of thin air? There wasn't even a car. Such a big coffin could not have been carried by people when it came all the way just now, right? Qin Yinan looked around in confusion. It would be great if someone can carry it and keep a distance from our car, Lu Chang'an said with appreciation. Is there any mechanism here? When you turn it, a cave or something will appear. Qin Yinan turned around and found nothing. You jump on that pillar and take a look. Lu Chang'an pointed to the pillar in the center of the square. I'm wearing a skirt. Qin Yinan was a little embarrassed because she was wearing a long skirt today and there were no safety pants under the skirt. Lu Chang'an looked at her with confusion. Qin Yinan then walked under the pillar, hesitated for a while, and jumped several times, but could not directly jump to the top of the 20-meter high pillar. Lu Chang'an jumped up and looked around. There were no other vehicles or large transportation vehicles around. Did you find anything? Qin Yinan also knew that it was inappropriate to worry about wearing a skirt for fear of being exposed when doing things. However, it was true that Qin Yinan felt embarrassed. After all, he always had to pay attention to his image in front of his elders. Qin Yinan has always been relatively calm when getting along with Lu Chang'an in front of others, but when there are only two people together, Qin Yinan always feels strange, and it always reminds her of his emotional expression towards her that night. It was towards Yesijin. Emotions, but Qin Yinan unexpectedly did not reject or separate, but was willing to accept the ups and downs of her mood at that time. Probably he flew to the top of the mountain. Lu Chang'an jumped down from the pillar. Qin Yinan reacted. It turns out that after they got off the highway, they switched to helicopter transportation. It's possible that the final location is here. I think it was probably transported to the top of the mountain. Lu Chang'an agreed with Qin Yinan's guess, although he thought it might be something like a bat. How did you track the location? Qin Yinan felt that it was okay to ask now. Lu Chang'an glanced at the car not far behind him and said, "There is a person in the coffin." Qin Yinan was startled. In the wilderness, in front of the cliffs, the night wind was whimpering. Two people were standing in the dark place. Lu Chang'an suddenly said that there was someone in the coffin. It was really scary. There's someone, there's someone. Could it be that it can still send you your location? Qin Yinan bumped her lips with her teeth, feeling a slight pain. She usually dared to watch horror movies alone at night, but with Lu Chang'an when they are together, they are less courageous, or they unconsciously want to appear softer. A girl as lively and active as An Nuan, who seems to be full of energy, must also be like this when she is alone with Lu Chang'an. Don't ask, let's go up the mountain first. Lu Chang'an looked up at the top of the mountain again. I can't go up unless someone takes me, Qin Yinan said a little reservedly. In this case, it was only natural for him to hold her and jump up the mountain. But I remembered that the last time I thought he would hold her and jump down the mountain. When Long Zongzin left, she took the initiative to lean into his arms and wait for him to pick her up, but he actually asked her to take the elevator. This was still fresh in her memory for a girl who was shy and rarely took the initiative. Take the elevator. Lu Chang'an pointed to another pillar mountain not far away and said the elevator that goes straight to the top of the mountain is half hidden in the mountain and half hanging on the cliff. Qin Yinan said oh calmly, turned around and walked to the car. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 308. Many times, if a huge artificial mark appears in the most primitive valleys, deserts, or glaciers, it will not feel like a damage to the natural scenery, but will make people feel the power of civilization. This elevator is called Ladder to Heaven. It used to allow tourists to go down to the mountain to stay after visiting the mountain. But now the supporting facilities on the mountain have been better developed. The indigenous people have also cooperated to improve the living environment, and many tourists have stayed there. On the mountain, the ladder begins to operate 24 hours a day. The vertical height of the ladder is 335 meters, and its operation is 326 meters. It is obviously unrealistic for Lu Chang'an to jump up on the spot in his current situation, let alone Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan turned around and walked to the car. Lu Chang'an got into the driver's seat. Zhu Huntang yawned, hugged the quilt and touched it. Hey, how do you know this is my favorite little quilt? I took whatever I wanted, Qin Yinan said. It turns out it's not fragrant at all. Zhu Huntang was a little confused. After taking a closer look, he found that the patterns and colors were the same. We'll get to the top of the mountain later. Zhu Huntang, go to the Sunrise Hotel on the top of the mountain to rest, Lu Chang'an said. How do you know there is a Sunrise Hotel? Look at the billboard. Did you bring your ID card? Only Qin Yinan brought her ID card, but Zhu Huntang refused. How could I stay in a small hotel like this? Their quilts couldn't be washed, and the toilets couldn't be used at all. Sitting on their bed, I felt like I was infected by bacteria and viruses, surrounded by an infectious disease. He might die. Then you stay in the car. You don't have to be afraid when the car stops in front of the hotel. Qin Yinan sighed and didn't bother to persuade her. On this kind of issue, Zhu Huntang really would rather die than surrender. I'll go with you, Zhu Huntang requested naturally. Do you know what I will do later? Lu Chang'an said without looking back. Are you getting gray? Zhu Huntang thought it was cute that he said this. I will jump from one mountain to another later and check if there are any abnormalities on each mountain. Then can you hold me and jump around? Zhu Huntang's eyes lit up, because the male protagonist and female protagonist with superpowers in the movie basically have such scenes, and it feels like it is a scene that must be experienced in life. What about me? Qin Yinan lowered her voice and expressed her refusal. Lu Chang'an should only have had this experience with her, and Qin Yinan was not willing to let Zhu Huntang share it. Even good sisters sometimes push her far away. Can't you dance by yourself? Zhu Huntang looked at Qin Yinan in surprise and disappointment. Are you so useless? Qin Yinan pressed her forehead and pushed her back into the seat. Zhu Huntang said ouch and turned around again, sticking her butt out and getting up. If there are two people, they can only hold one under the creaking nest, one on each side. This experience is not good, Lu Chang'an said, not minding it very much. The last time he carried Qin Yinan for a long distance jump, the most important thing was it is more difficult to find the landing point, and there is an ascending process from a low place to a height of 452 meters. The ascending jump is much more strenuous than the horizontal jump. The most important thing is that since the last time I felt strenuous, my body needs to adjust. It is natural that it is more applicable now than last time. Then why don't you hold me and let Yaya lie on your back like a frog? Zhu Huntang didn't want to be pinched like that, it was not elegant at all. Then why don't you lie down like a frog? Qin Yinan picked up the pillow and hit Zhu Huntang again. What happened to Zhu Huntang today? Competing with her for favor in front of Lu Chang'an? No, this is not a competition for favor, it is very annoying anyway. Because I'm small, it's easier to hold me in your arms, and all cute girls are held in my arms. Zhu Huntang felt that his reasons were too good. This reason sounds very reasonable. Qin Yinan is still a little shocked. In terms of body shape, she is indeed less suitable to be held than Zhu Huntang. Although girls over 1.7 meters long for the feeling of a little bird clinging to someone, in fact, it is difficult to feel it. It was probably the last time, when Qin Yinan was held by Lu Chang'an, Qin Yinan had such a good feeling. This had nothing to do with Lu Chang'an, but most tall girls would admire and like her. I can grab you and throw you over. When you land, just hug a tree to cushion yourself. Lu Chang'an thought of a better way. No. What if I fall on my face later? Then just stay in the car. Qin Yinan thought this was a good idea. Even if he wasn't hugging the tree, with his special physique, he shouldn't be injured. Haha, don't think that it's okay because you are thick-skinned. Your clothes will definitely not be able to bear it. When Lu Chang'an jumps over and finds you in disheveled clothes, you look pitiful, with your shoulders half exposed, your butt, and your breasts all exposed. Now, Lu Chang'an's bestiality is showing. Lu Chang'an casually threw the phone over and hit Zhu Huntang on the forehead. Zhu Huntang was in pain and immediately screamed and fainted. Pick up the phone for me and see if it's broken. Lu Chang'an was distressed but unhappy because An Nuan bought this phone for him. He didn't think of this for a while. He just wanted Zhu Huntang to shut up. If the phone is broken, oh, I have to beat Zhu Huntang again. Is she okay? Qin Yinan was angry and funny. Of course it was aimed at Zhu Huntang. She asked for it? Maybe Lu Chang'an had been too gentle recently, which made Zhu Huntang forget that her experience of being beaten since childhood was all due to Lu Chang'an. Manufactured. It's okay. I'm very skilled at making her fall asleep. Lu Chang'an took the phone from Qin Yinan's hand. Fortunately, it was okay, the location information was gone. It seemed that Shang Guandandan's phone had run out of battery. Qin Yinan felt relieved, turned his back to Lu Chang'an and tested Zhu Huntang's breathing, and then covered Zhu Huntang with a quilt. Looking at the faint red mark on Zhu Huntang's forehead, Qin Yinan couldn't help but said with some annoyance, actually, she is a very cute girl, but you still have to be gentle. If I were really gentle to her, you would be jealous. Lu Chang'an said calmly, women are so hypocritical. I can't. Why should I be jealous? Qin Yinan's cheeks turned red and she said angrily, pulling hard on the hem of her skirt with her fingers. Of course Lu Chang'an was not teasing Qin Yinan, but he just remembered that Yesijin also liked Sister Sumei at the beginning. However, as Sister Sumei came to the garden more often, she would always say softly at some inadvertent moment. Some of Sister Sumei's problems, minor, appeared here and there. Lu Chang'an drove the car to the foot of the ladder. There was also a visitor center here with many cars parked. Zhu Huntang asked her to stay in this car, which would not be in danger as long as it did not fall into the sea and sink. The first section of the ladder is within the mountain. After more than 100 meters, the ladder rushes out of the mountain, and you can see the beautiful scenery of Gongjiaji's clusters of pillar mountains. On such a night, stars and rivers hang in the sky, and mountains rise one after another on the ground. There is a vague mist flowing between the pillars, like a gauze condensed by starlight, which is magnificent and beautiful. I want to watch the sunrise here, Qin Yinan said with some anticipation. Let's take a look if you can. The two people arrived at the top of the mountain. Of course they did not go in the direction of the tourists. Instead, they avoided the cameras and came to the back of the visitor center on the top of the mountain. The nearest mountain top was only a few dozen meters away from the top of Zuzu Mountain. Jumping from here to the top of the Pillar Mountain, the original target that Lu Chang'an was tracking, was only a few jumps away. When the time comes, I will help you check your body and see what your growth prospects are. If your skin is thicker, you can probably only become a top warrior among humans. Lu Chang'an lowered his head and looked at the distance below him, which was more than 300 meters away. The height is not as high as Building 1 of Bailong Center. Okay, with only the two of them together, Qin Yinan unknowingly switched to the mentality of the younger generation, getting along with old Mrs. Lu. She didn't ask much about what Lu Chang'an meant by timing before the time came. Let's go over there. I can't jump over, Qin Yinan said, nonsense, which was a kind of reserve, lest he take the initiative to lean over, and he pointed to where there was an elevator. Lu Chang'an didn't talk nonsense to her, picked up Qin Yinan and jumped from the air. Your palms are pressing on the bottom of my skirt, Qin Yinan shouted in a low voice in the air. The wind in the valley was strong at night, and her hands could only hold onto the top of her skirt. She could feel the swelling of her skirt underneath. The buttocks were touched by the autumn wind and felt slightly cool. Lu Chang'an had already carried her to the top of the pillar next to her. Lu Chang'an did not put her down because he had to go to the top of the Zuzu mountain next to it. It would be a lot of trouble to put her down. Moreover, the top of the mountain was very large and there were no paths suitable for tourists. If you walked there, the clothes of two people would be, I'm afraid it will inevitably be hooked. You, help press the hem of my skirt with your palms. Qin Yinan pressed Lu Chang'an's chest. I can't hold it down with my backhand. It's too windy when I jump. Who is looking up at your butt on this deserted mountain top in the middle of the night? Do you think there is a moon under your skirt? Lu Chang'an said nonchalantly. It's really similar, Qin Yinan said, unconvinced. Lu Chang'an was stunned for a moment, and then said nothing. He pressed her skirt to the crook of her legs with his palms, and then jumped forward without saying a word. Qin Yinan's cheeks turned red. She was really unscrupulous in what she said. He must have thought about it, and then he felt that what she said made sense. It made sense. The bottom of a mature and plump woman's skirt was as dazzling and bright as the moon. Lu Chang'an hugged Qin Yinan, and after several leaps, he finally reached the top of the pillar where the signal was last located. I am willing to bring you here because I want you to increase your knowledge, but I don't want you to participate in dangerous battles. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Follow me. If there is a fight, I will be responsible for taking action, and you will be responsible for watching. All right. Under the starlight, his cheek lines were gentle but still serious. Qin Yinan nodded. When Ye Saijin was with him, this was probably the feeling of a sister following her brother, right? His back was the wall that protected her. The moisture in his eyes that night, and the words he wanted but couldn't get, were he buried regrets for not protecting Ye Saijin all the time. If he hadn't protected himself well, would he have been standing somewhere with another woman decades later, recalling those years? Let's go, Lu Chang'an pulled Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan came back to her senses. What was she thinking about? This Zuzu mountain is higher than other Zuzu mountains. Except for aerial photography, ordinary tourists cannot see the top of the mountain. The trees on the mountain are taller and the vegetation types are also different. There are a lot of bird droppings here. Chinyan covered her nose. She stepped on some wet bird droppings. Fortunately, the bird droppings did not accumulate into the country like an island country, but only scattered bits and pieces. Lu Chang'an looked around and saw bird droppings on the ground, trees, and leaves. He looked at them and said, "This is the droppings of starling birds distributed in the Gongjiaja area." Ah, Qin Yinan was surprised and admired that this person actually studied bird poop, so if he saw dog poop on the road, could he also know what kind of dog poop it was? The starling family includes the most common birds in the world, as well as the rarest and endangered birds. Myna is a member of the starling family. I once studied a kind of wattled starling, which is the most common bird in the world. The famous characteristic is that during the breeding period, the head feathers will fall off, revealing the bright yellow skin. From the aesthetic point of view of birds, baldness can attract the opposite sex, so I once used this example to persuade my friends not to worry about baldness, even if there is no girl. If children like it, birds will also like it. In the end, there is no difference. Then why don't you become bald? Qin Yinan couldn't understand his incredible logic. I have been a monk. Do you think I have ever gone to obtain Buddhist scriptures? Qin Yinan felt that it was not difficult to understand that he had been a monk. After all, for a person like him, he felt that being a monk was a very suitable status and profession for him, but in this day and age, he seemed to have no interest in becoming a monk. I even have a girlfriend, so how can I leave home? Or be a flower monk? Of course I study the wattled starling not because its bald head can attract female birds, but because in addition to its bald head, it also grows long black wattles on its chin. This feature in humans is probably the plump 3 chin, so if you are middle-aged and bald and have a 3 chin, it actually doesn't matter. Someone will always like you. You must know that women like bright things just like birds. Generally speaking, women's aesthetics are no different from those of birds. I'm not bald and have 3 chins. If I were bald and have 3 chins, would you like me? Qin Yinan blurted out. No, it's too ugly. Then what you just said? I said that is the aesthetics of birds and women. I am not a bird or a woman. Didn't you see that men with bald heads and 3 chins are often accompanied by beautiful women, so there is nothing fundamentally wrong with what I said. Let's end the topic of wattled starlings. Thank you, Qin Yinan said calmly to Mrs. Lu. The chin of the wattled starling will be absorbed after the breeding period. This is the focus of my research, which involves new ideas for treating cancer, and it can regenerate hair when it is bald. Of course, it can be studied to see if it can be used to cure humans. The problem of baldness. According to our traditional approach, we probably just think that eating the wattled starlings will be enough, but they are basically distributed in Central and Southern Africa. Lu Chang'an paused and looked at a dark man in the distance. The most important thing is that most starlings like to breed in caves. Since there is a lot of starling droppings here, we can find a cave without any surprise. Only then did Qin Yinan realize why Lu Chang'an had been talking about starlings. It turned out that he was looking for a cave. What he meant was that the coffin was probably sent into this cave. Please give me a monthly ticket. Please give me a monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 309. It was of great significance to human history that primitive humans went into caves to live, and it was even more significant when humans came out of caves. This entry and exit related to caves has existed throughout human history. Leaving the mother's belly and entering the tomb is a person's life. There are many things in the development of the analogy that are difficult to describe. Lu Chang'an looked at the cave in front of him, smelling the starling droppings, and walked over step by step. A gust of wind blew out of the cave, bringing with it a hint of moisture and coolness. There is a yin river under the cave. The yin river in Gongjiaja is rich in salamanders and whitebait, and they are both delicious, Lu Chang'an reminded Qin Yinan, but there are also mysterious water beasts, in the world of underground caves and underground rivers, and outside. It's a completely different ecology. Although the chance is very small, if you fall and get eaten by a water beast, it will take you through underground waterways and even water eyes deep in the earth's crust. There are only a few of them for thousands of years. Maybe we won't even get out. Actually, mankind has not even explored 1% of the earth. Qin Yinan sighed while following Lu Chang'an's footsteps. The coffin was really hoisted up by a helicopter, right? Not necessarily. Some time ago, a group of bats kept coming to spy on me. I caught some of them and ate them in the coffin. Lu Chang'an walked to the entrance of the cave. Can you see clearly inside? I can't see clearly. Qin Yinan was curious and slightly frightened. You mean, those bats can not only spy on you, but are also so powerful that they can fly up to carry a coffin? Yes, I have seen a movie in which bats carried a 1,000-year-old red coffin from the west and fought against zombies from the east. Lu Chang'an said this because a ridiculous explanation can divert a person's attention and curiosity, so that he doesn't have to explain more to her now. Qin Yinan rolled her eyes at him and asked no more questions. Give me your hand. Lu Chang'an turned around and said. What? Qin Yinan asked with some enthusiasm. When walking at night, children can't see the road clearly, so adults have to hold their hands. Lu Chang'an grabbed Qin Yinan's hand. Although I misunderstood, it seems to be good now. The adults are holding the little hand, it feels quite cute and warm. That seems to be Zhou Dongdong's treatment, and I also enjoy the cute feeling for a while. Walking into the cave, Qin Yinan discovered that warmth was just a need for self-feeling, and that him holding her hand was a realistic choice. Her eyes were already more adaptable to darkness than ordinary people, but to be in such a deep moment in the universe in a dark scene, it is basically useless. Qin Yinan quickly grabbed Lu Chang'an's hand with both hands. She didn't want to fall into the Yin River, Lu Chang'an said. She could vaguely hear the sound of gurgling water, as if there was a female ghost full of resentment clinging to her eardrums. Touching her, gusts of cold wind blew up her skirt. At this time, she was no longer in the mood to hold the hem of her skirt. Her skin was tense and relaxed. There were no goosebumps, but there was a feeling of hair standing on end. Qin Yinan couldn't help but think, no matter how small the chance was, if the water beast, Lu Chang'an said, swallowed her, I wonder if he would risk everything to save her? After all, that would involve the risk of suffering alone in the underground world for an unknown number of years. Most of the time you won't encounter water animals, but you may encounter giant salamanders. I wonder if he will catch a few and take them back to eat. How can you be sure that the coffin will be here? We have no idea how big it is here and how far it has to go. We didn't know how long we had walked. In this pure darkness, only the temperature of Lu Chang'an's palm could. People felt a little relieved, feeling that they had not fallen into some dark world, and all kinds of emotions were amplified a lot. Qin Yinan lowered his voice and asked uneasily. Only you know nothing. I can see clearly the road under our feet. There are bats hanging above our heads. Many people will wonder if the bat is hanging all the time. Will it urinate on itself? In fact, it is excreting. It will stand upright, with its head up and its butt down. Lu Chang'an turned around and picked up Qin Yinan. Forget it, walking at night with a child is too long. Qin Yinan felt that he did not hold down the hem of her back skirt, but she was too embarrassed to remind him, so she could not help but be a little reserved. Why did he pick her up so casually now? Didn't he say that men and women should not be intimate? I didn't even ask her for her opinion, although she would definitely do the same. She always seemed to have to do something. After being hugged by Lu Chang'an, Qin Yinan felt that the uneasiness in the dark had completely disappeared without a trace. After all, her cheek would touch his warm chest from time to time, and her whole body felt wrapped, just like when Qinyanan was sleeping. Sometimes I would wrap myself up tightly with a quilt. Lu Chang'an also speeded up. This cave did not go all the way down. It was roughly estimated that between the top of the mountain and halfway up the mountain was the largest underground palace in the entire cave. The sound of water in the distance was from the cave deep in the underground palace leading to the bottom of the mountain. Pass it over. Don't make a sound, Lu Chang'an said in Qinyanan's ear in order to lower his voice. Qinyanan's ears felt itchy, and then a burning sensation spread from the soft earlobes, making half of her cheeks red. In such darkness, he could see the road clearly, but he probably couldn't see her expression clearly. Qinyanan bid, keep your lips closed. Zhu Huntang knows her sensitive points, but Zhu Huntang usually doesn't attack her ears. Qinyanan felt Lu Chang'an's leap to the ground. He was like a rabbit hopping in the grass, and his fleshy solace landed quietly on the soft grass. He put her down, but Qinyanan heard someone talking. Madam is the only vampire in the world who has been personally blessed by the blood ancestor. This coffin is an artifact left by the blood ancestor in the world. Only by getting this coffin can the madam return to the blood ancestor. Hundreds of years ago, the madam was seriously injured. The blood ancestor allowed his blood to flow into the madam's body, and the madam gained eternal life from then on. You have made a great contribution this time, and the madam will definitely reward you. The voice was a soft female voice, but there was a hint of teasing and irreverence in her tone. You garrulous robot, stop using content from online novels to program your wife. Your AI design is the most illogical and boring of any artificial intelligence I have ever seen. The other male voice was a little rough. Ah! The female voice known as the shredding robot suddenly let out an emotionless cry, and then there was the sound of something rolling on the ground, crackling and breaking. It turns out that the robot is talking nonsense. I thought there were really some vampires. Qinyanan said softly in Lu Chang'an's ear as if he breathed a sigh of relief. Who? Qinyanan was surprised. She clearly felt that her voice was softer than Lu Chang'an's original voice when he spoke in her ear. She didn't expect that the other party could hear her even though he seemed to be far away. In such an environment, Qinyanan, who has not completely separated from the living habits of ordinary people, naturally cannot change his judgment habits so easily. I recommend a book, Slaying the Dragon, based on the introduction. You have to believe me, I really came to fight Nuruchi. The sleeping with his wife was a complete accident. You should also take a look. Stay tuned for an unprecedented outbreak tomorrow. In addition, the settings of suspected vampire creatures in this article only need to meet the settings and needs of this article. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 310. Lu Chang'an pulled Qinyanan out from behind the stalactites. There was no natural path in the cave. The rock surface formed by calcium deposition in the water was moist and smooth. There was a relatively flat terrace-like area in front of it, spread out layer by layer. If tourism resources are developed, it will probably be given a name like Dragon Palace Terraces. This open area covers tens of thousands of square meters, which is no less than the largest underground palace in another karst cave in Gongjiaja, Huanglong Cave. As for the height above the ground, it is probably even greater, with a height of 60 or 70 meters above the head. There are stalactite pillars hanging upside down from the top, as if densely packed spearheads point directly to the ground. Hello, Lu Chang'an said. The man with the rough voice obviously had the ability to see in the dark. He paused for a moment and said in a low voice, "How did you find me?" As he spoke, he turned his head and glanced at the body of the robot next to him and the head that he took off and threw away. Could it be that this crazy robot leaked information? All smart devices that can connect to the internet are unsafe. In this cave, any network signal is naturally blocked, so it seems that it was tracked on the way here. You are Francis Crick. Lu Chang'an looked at the other party's unexpected but still arrogant look and tone, and finally confirmed, yes, you must be Francis Crick. The arrogance on the man's face was replaced by surprise. Which Francis Crick are you talking about? Several people with the same name came to Qin Yinan's mind, but he could not be sure who Lu Chang'an was talking about. Francis Crick, who discovered the double helix structure of DNA together with James Dewey Watson. Lu Chang'an showed a surprised expression. After all, this is the time since the birth of the Earth and the birth of life. A super scientist who discovers meaning. Lu Chang'an found nothing through his own research, so he admired people who could find out all the answers through his own research. No way, Professor Crick died of colorectal cancer in 2004, although this kind of cancer has a high cure rate. Unfortunately Professor Crick was not cured. Qin Yinan is not a post-00s generation after all. She was deeply impressed. At that time, the school also organized commemorative activities and went to the Biotechnology Museum to watch exhibitions and study. I remember the model of the double helix structure of DNA very clearly. I wasn't sure at first. After all, he is now what Professor Crick looked like in the 1980s and 1990s. But when we talked about his past, the look on his face showed that he was, and he didn't care much about us knowing about him. His true identity. Lu Chang'an looked at Crick. He was wearing a black tights and his muscles were swollen. Except for his face, he had no resemblance to the former Professor Crick. Because you all have to die, Crick sneered. Are you really, Professor Crick? Qin Yinan was still in a state of surprise. Although Crick was very unfriendly, what he saw in front of him was a legend after all. The discovery of the double helix structure of DNA was the only one in biology equal to Darwin. The results that are comparable to the evolution theory box, in terms of practical significance to modern humans, the discovery of the double helix structure of DNA may be even better. It is one of the three major discoveries of the 20th century with the same status as the theory of relativity and quantum mechanics. Crick looked at Qin Yinan, and he found that Qin Yinan was actually speaking in another direction. He knew that she was just an ordinary woman, so he said to Lu Chang'an, "Did you jump into the Yin River and be eaten by water beasts? As my bat feed?" Crick was the first person in the history of science who clearly proposed that natural science can be used to solve the problem of consciousness. Lu Chang'an ignored Crick's threat and continued to talk to Qin Yinan. Like many scientists, he began to think about it from aspects such as philosophy. Looking for solutions, I met Crick by chance when I participated in a forum in the 1990s. Although he was the leader in biological research, I made him realize that consciousness reconstructs the environment so that memories can reappear as in the past. Skills, and then he published a paper on the framework of consciousness in the journal Nature Neuroscience in 2003. You are that magical Chinese Professor Lu, Crick was surprised. I met Watson in the 1950s. When I met you in the 1990s, I thought you were the one I met during my scientific research. There is a Watson. When we met Watson, we discovered the double helix structure of DNA. I originally thought that when I met you, I would be able to discover the truth about the framework of consciousness. But now you seem to have given up on consciousness research and raised bats. Are these strange bats bred by you using some biotechnology? Lu Chang'an said regretfully, since you are not dead, why? Why don't you continue your long-promising work on consciousness? When I discovered that my cancer was hopeless, I realized that the significance of consciousness research was not as important as continuing to achieve results in the field of cell-based research. Crick looked at his vicissitudes of life but was still strong. Body, I'm very satisfied with who I am now. As for you, why do you look so young again? I'm different from you. Lu Chang'an thought for a while. I'm a little embarrassed. I don't really want to kill you, but I feel it would be troublesome not to kill you. Crick laughed unruly, and his biography also recorded the arrogance that accompanied him at all times, and arrogant people are most easily irritated by the arrogance of others. Professor Crick, why did you steal our coffin? Chinyanan had found his exact location through Crick's several conversations. After such a long period of adaptation, she could vaguely see the other person's face. A blurry dark figure. Yours? Why do you say it's yours? Did you dig it out of the ground and get the consent of its original owner? Since you can take it for yourself without consent, what's the problem with me doing this? Carrie Kay said with a sneer. Chinyanan was speechless for a moment. What the other party said was so reasonable that it was difficult for him to refute it. She is asking why, not condemning your behavior. I don't object to your stealing, I just want to get it back again, Lu Chang'an said calmly. Let's talk about the truth first. I own this coffin more than you do. Reason for possession, because its original owner is me, my so-and-so. Then who? Who is yours? Chinyanan became a little nervous. Lu Chang'an must keep this coffin with him. Is it because it is Yesijin inside? It's his grandma. A soft female voice sounded with frightened laughter. Creek raised his leg and kicked the robot's head far away. It took a long time before he heard the sound of falling into the water. I don't want to be reasonable anymore, Lu Chang'an frowned. Did you jump into the Yin River yourself and let the water beasts eat it, or did you let the bats you fed eat it? Chinyanan felt a little pity. After all, Crick was a master of science and a rare treasure for mankind, but there was no way. If Lu Chang'an wanted to do this, he couldn't dismantle him. The so-called husband sings and the wife follows. No, the so-called elder has a destiny, no dare to disobey. Hearing Lu Chang'an repeat his original words, Crick burst out laughing. The laughter seemed to spread out in circles like tangible ripples, and then rumbling echoes spread out in waves. The sound of water in the distance was surging, as if there was something. The dormant water beasts were awakened and were stirring up the Yin River. I'm curious, how did you change your appearance and regain your youth? Or did you just hear from your elders about the interactions between Professor Lu and I? Crick's laughter stopped and he raised his head. Raising his hand, it seemed that the water beast in the Yin River was calmed down as if it had received instructions, and there was no longer a shocking sound of water coming from the distant abyss. What about you? Lu Chang'an did not answer. I am 12 years older than Watson. When I was waiting to die, I thought a lot. I was wondering whether I could independently discover the double helix structure of DNA without Watson. We published it in the journal Nature, that paper on the molecular structure of nucleic acids, a possible structure of DNA, later proposed the central dogma and laid the foundation of molecular genetics. Ingram and I discovered the role of genetic material in determining protein properties. Isn't it ironic that he is called the father of molecular biology, but he can do nothing about the tumors in his body? Crick's lips curled up slightly. That's when I met M.R.S. Karnstein. The M.R.S. Karnstein that the robot mentioned just now really exists? Chinyanan was slightly surprised. Of course M.R.S. Karnstein exists. She gave me another life and gave me the excellent colleagues I dreamed of working with. She made me realize the new direction of life research. We do not need to pursue the origin of life, but should explore the evolution of life. The limit, such as eternal life. There was a kind of fanaticism in Crick's eyes, and there was no doubt that he admired M.R.S. Karnstein. Have you achieved eternal life? How can immortality be so easy to achieve? This is the ultimate goal we pursue, but now our experiments focus on evolution and transformation. Crick was already a little impatient, and stepped closer to Lu Chang'an and Chinyanan. Then what do you need this coffin for, and what does it mean to M.R.S. Karnstein? Lu Chang'an was very curious about this question. This coffin may contain the secret of eternal life. After Crick finished speaking, he had already walked to a forest of stalactites not far from Lu Chang'an. There are stalactites everywhere, which are moist and fresh. Some are like jade pillars that go vertically from the top to the ground, some are high like clouds and rain hanging upside down in the sky, and some are like white waves rolling into the sky. It is really a variety of scenes and a spectacle. Crick suddenly hugged a long column of stalactites and broke it in his arms. Such a big root will take at least hundreds of thousands or even millions of years to grow, Lu Chang'an said as he casually lifted Qinyanan and threw it onto a stone platform in the distance. Qinyanan exclaimed as he landed, but found that he was standing firmly. Sure enough, just like Lu Chang'an knocking Zhu Huntang unconscious, Zhu Huntang would not be really injured. Lu Chang'an's control of force was very wonderful and precise. Creek swept over with the stalactite in his arms and hit Lu Chang'an hard. The stalactite pillar, carrying moist water vapor and the whistling wind, fell on Lu Chang'an's outstretched right hand with a pop sound. The stalactites feel like dead beauties, smooth and cold. Lu Chang'an also stretched out his other hand and hugged the stalactite pillar with both hands. Creek grabbed it with all his strength, but found that it was motionless. Suddenly, he found that Lu Chang'an had lifted the huge stalactite pillar upright in the air under his feet. Creek was lifted up high. He let go of the stone pillar, kicked off his feet, and landed far away on the ground. Lu Chang'an turned the stalactite pillar upside down and placed it firmly in its original place within and in his arms. He patted the bottom with a few small stones to stabilize the stone pillar. "Who are you?" "There is no such thing as an enhanced person with natural mutations." Creek stepped back step by step, staring closely at Lu Chang'an. "I am the blood ancestor." Lu Chang'an jumped up and punched in the air. A group of bats, like a black cloud, suddenly gathered in front of Crick, forming an airtight wall of bats. With the trembling wings, tiny eyes, and mouse body, they were densely squirming. Lu Chang'an's fist smashed. When you are above it, you suddenly feel as if you are hitting a elastic net. It's just that Lu Chang'an's strength was huge, and with the web formed by no less than 1,000 bats, he still hit Creek's chest. Creek's chest sunken, and a mouthful of blood spurted out, falling on the bats. Except for some of the bats that were killed, the other bats seemed to be stimulated. They crowded over desperately and sucked the protruding penis from Creek. Blood. The greedy rat heads were crowded together and squirming. Gradually, bats couldn't help but get closer to Creek's lips and chest, beating and gnawing at Creek's body. The sound of flapping wings and the sound of wind came from the air. Lu Chang'an looked up and saw that the darkness at the top of the cave was actually covered with dense bats. The bats that could cover the sky and sun when they flew out seemed to be attracted by Creek's blood. "Come over. There are bats everywhere." Qinyanan also discovered it. She was already at a higher place, desperately slapping the bats that came closer. For her, if she encountered a group of tigers and wolves, her face would be pale at most, but these descriptions are ugly. The little thing made Qinyanan's hair stand on end. She heard Lu Chang'an whistle, and the sound gradually rose in pitch. Just when it almost pierced Qinyanan's eardrum, it was silenced in an instant and disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the bat above her head, they began to move abnormally, struggling and flapping their wings one by one, and then they fell like large black goose feather snowflakes in clusters, covering the sky. After a while, the bats stumbled and fled in all directions or fell to the ground, fluttering their wings and struggling to fly into the air again. Finally, the scene became quiet. Lu Chang'an picked Creek out of the bat pile. Human beings always try to create supernaturally evolved creatures, but they are counterattacked almost every time. But such experiments are not meaningless or unnecessary. Humanity itself progresses through explorations that many of our contemporaries find pointless and unnecessary. Lu Chang'an mentioned Crick and looked at the face he had seen in the 1990s. "I hope to see Mrs. Karnstein, or something else behind the scenes. Can you send me a message?" Lu Chang'an said in a gentle tone. He was not filled with any disgust towards Crick. Most of the time, human beings' various behaviors are just like those of ants, noisy and busy. No one will have too many emotions when watching the behavior of ants. Creek didn't say anything, but looked at Lu Chang'an with complicated eyes. Compared to himself, Lu Chang'an seemed to have evolved more powerfully. What organization was behind him? Mrs. Karnstein was afraid that Mrs. Karnstein could create an enhanced person like Lu Chang'an, but she did not reveal the relevant information to him. Creek thought of the lady's beautiful face. He had never seen her real face, but she was already stunningly beautiful in his mind. Over the years, he had not even wanted to visit his family. On the one hand, it is a confidentiality requirement. Resurrection from death and rejuvenation is too shocking. On the other hand, it is as if he has been poisoned by her and has no other emotional needs. I can wait, I don't care about the aggressiveness you are showing now and the way you do things as if a superior is exercising laws. You will eventually return to dust, but eternal life will be mine. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he threw Creek into the front. In the abyss. After a long time, the sound of falling into the water was heard in the distance, and then there was a sound of rushing water. The waves surged into the cave, and the strong wind roared up with water vapor, and fell like broken rain. Lu Chang'an went to pick up Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan held Lu Chang'an's hand tightly and followed him, because this area was almost densely packed with bats, and they were piled up in a thick layer. I heard what you said, but you seem to have thrown Professor Crick into the Yin River, and then it felt like there was something in the water. Qin Yinan asked breathlessly. She was a little nervous. She just said only then did he realize what if something happened to Lu Chang'an? In fact, after walking into this cave, she had been ignorantly thinking that Lu Chang'an was invincible. After all, his ability was too powerful. Do you think he won't be able to send messages like this? Ye Qin Yinan took Lu Chang'an's hand and shook it vigorously, finally making his breathing easier. I think he commanded the bats to carry the coffin up, which means he has the ability to command these animals. How can it be so easy to meet the water beasts in the Yin River? Ordinary people have a 1 in a billion chance of encountering them when they go to the cave. No, but he wanted to feed us to the water beasts, which shows that the water beasts are indeed here. Is this a coincidence? Definitely not. It can only be said that he dispatched the water beasts to come here. My judgment is, his original plan was to transport the coffin with water beasts, which was an untraceable path. It seems that these people have penetrated very deep and have clearly mapped and explored the hydrology and geography of many of our places, Qin Yinan said with some annoyance. After all, this is southern Hunan, the area under the rule of his father. Don't pay too much attention to it. For these people, after they have acquired abilities and physiological vitality that surpass ordinary people, they often develop a sense of superiority that transcends nations, and races, and believe that various concepts in the composition of ordinary human society have no impact on them. They will try to control data in any region. In their eyes, the Earth only needs longitude and latitude, and does not need the positioning of national boundaries. What about you? Qin Yinan blurted out. She was different. She had a very strong sense of belonging and pride in her country. The same goes for me. It's just that a long time ago, I met some cute little animals, and lived happily with them, taking care of them. Later, the offspring of these little animals were still very cute, so I continued to stay. Here, I gradually met some lovely people I like, people who are willing to listen to their wishes, so I continued this habit, wandering around and then coming back here. Lu Chang'an smiled. It was just too long ago. The memories or the emotions are removed, and only the simple pictures are left, and then I don't care so much, but now someone I like has appeared in these years, and I am dawdling on this land again. After living in the land for many years, it is inevitable that you will have a feeling that this land and the people on this land are somewhat different compared to each other. What are you talking about? Qin Yinan was annoyed because the first half of what he said was incomprehensible, but the second half made people's hearts beat. She didn't know that the people he liked didn't include herself. It was probably just an nuance. It's nothing. Lu Chang'an took out his hand and clapped it with both hands, a little disgusted. Why are your palms so wet? They are all sweat. I mean, just like Ziking asked me to take care of you, If you ask me to take care of your children and grandchildren in the future, then there will be no problem if I continue to take care of them for hundreds of years. Can I still have children? Qinyanan finally couldn't help asking this question that she had been pondering but had no way of knowing the answer to. Right, Lu Chang'an didn't think about this and stopped. What's right? Qinyanan became nervous. It's nothing. You can find out if you try it with someone in the future. How do I know now? Lu Chang'an waved his hand and continued walking forward. Let's try you. Can you try this kind of thing? Qinyanan punched Lu Chang'an on the shoulder. Qinyanan was actually worried about this problem but not urgent. Listening to Lu Chang'an's nonchalant answer, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Looking for someone to try? You and I know what will happen to Ma Weiming. If someone really comes to Qinyanan to try, I'm afraid he will be killed by you before the test can reveal anything, right? Lu Chang'an did not continue this topic with Qinyanan. Now was not the time to discuss it. It was impossible for him to try it with Qinyanan, let alone give her other suggestions and answers. He came to the depths of the underground palace, where the ground was exceptionally clean, and the dying bats around seemed to be struggling to stay away from the coffin. The bats that were not controlled by Creek seemed to have returned to creatures with awe and instinct, staying away from the coffin that exuded a cold aura. By the way, who did you say was yours in the coffin? Qinyanan asked again. I'm his mother. A girl's childish voice, fresh as water vapor, came out from the coffin. Lu Chang'an picked up the coffin and planned to throw Shang Guandandan into the Yin River. Asking for monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 311. If you want to experience the lonely feeling of drifting alone in the universe, the underground Yin River can provide a similar feeling. It's even a little bit more interesting. After all, there may be many ancient creatures living in the underground Yin River, coffins hiding outstanding heroes, tombstones recording heavenly books, casting tripods that suppress all directions, or other civilization bases. Lu Chang'an has not encountered these things in the Yin River, but it does not mean that they do not exist. Even phenomena that have not been confirmed to exist may exist. Maybe we can meet Shang Guandandan. I'm coming out. Probably feeling some kind of threat, Shang Guandandan shouted in a childish voice, still not lacking her accustomed majesty, as if she was still the imperial mistress whose destiny was at the exit of Viang Palace. Lu Chang'an lowered the coffin with a calm expression. Didn't he scare you to death? Qinyanan trotted over and followed. The bats under his feet always made people feel like they were walking on dead mice in the dense mouse holes in horror movies. In the coffin, there is really something in the coffin. Qinyanan stood behind Lu Chang'an, pressing her chest, pulling Lu Chang'an's sleeves nervously. The person in the coffin might be a human, but it might also be a zombie. So Qinyanan felt that there was something there, but she couldn't tell what it was. Don't be afraid. Lu Chang'an patted Qinyanan's head with his backhand. Qinyanan couldn't help but hugged Lu Chang'an's arm, either because she was treated as a child, or because there was something hidden in the coffin in front of her. You seem angry, Shang Guandandan asked again. I'm not angry, I just reacted in a humane way based on your performance. Lu Chang'an's mood was very stable. There was nothing to be angry about. This was the first time in his long life that he met a weak female who insisted on being his mother. What should I do if you force me to sleep when you are angry? Shang Guandandan was still not at ease. This traitor was crazy, disobedient, and unethical. Ah, Qinyanan was surprised. He looked at the coffin and then at Lu Chang'an. You. Lu Chang'an took his arm out of Qinyanan's chest calmly and patted the coffin board. I didn't forcefully comfort you. I didn't try to make you into an elixir. Nor did I try to occupy your carriage or coffin. I am Lu Chang'an now, an ordinary college student. Please don't have persecution delusions. Lu Chang'an explained calmly. Shang Guandandan said nothing, and the coffin fell silent. Who is here? Qin Yinan felt like she wanted to drink some soda now to dilute the smell in her mouth and body. Listening to the conversation and tone, she was sure that it was definitely not Ye Sijin. If Ye Sijin were here, I'm afraid not only would she have to step aside, but An Nuan would probably have to step aside as well. Maybe if Ye Sijin and Lu Chang'an were not interested in staying in Juncha anymore, they would definitely take Ye Sijin to see the world that Ye Sijin wanted to see but never saw. Shang Guandandan Lu Chang'an smiled, picked up her hand, pinched a finger and pressed her lips. Shang Guandandan? Although Qin Yinan was full of questions, he still had the sense not to ask any more questions. I'm coming out. You already said that once. I'm coming out. This is the third time. I'm really coming out. This is the fourth time. The coffin cover slowly moved away, revealing bit by bit. The joint between the cover and the coffin body was as smooth as a mirror, revealing a little of the interior of the coffin. Qin Yinan's eyes widened. She couldn't see clearly what was in the coffin, but luckily there was nothing radiant or evil. Just as he was holding his chest in anticipation, the coffin cover moved and returned to its original position, returning to its closed state. You can continue to be autistic. Lu Chang'an respected Shang Guandandan's choice very much. I need to put the crown on first, and my baby is out of power. Qin Yinan became more and more confused as she listened to Shang Guandandan's words. This second sentence seemed to have nothing to do with her explanation that she would not be able to come out for the time being, and what kind of treasure needed to be recharged. Qin Yinan had never heard that treasures such as Suishan Cauldron, Wind and Thunder Wings, and Kingzhou Peak Cloud Sword needed to be charged. In such a mysterious and strange scene, Qin Yinan would naturally interpret Shang Guandandan's treasure as a fantasy treasure. Lu Chang'an waited for a while again. This time the coffin cover slowly slid to the other side, and Shang Guandandan's fingers rested on the edge of the coffin. Qin Yinan's heel softened, and she held Lu Chang'an's arm while holding her breath. She stared dumbly at the girl's slender, soft, and transparent palm as if carved from nephrite, especially the luminous pearl ring on her finger. The brilliance of the night pearl only shines brightly when she raises her palm. Her palm seems not to block the brilliance at all, and it does not affect at all the way the night pearl illuminates the patterns of the coffin under her palm. The watery silk sleeve slipped from the back of her hands. The girl's arms were like lotus roots, smooth without a trace of hair. She finally raised her body, revealing her delicate nose like jelly, and then there was a face that had frozen all the years, as if countless years later, she still has the young face of a girl, wearing an extremely complicated phoenix crown on her head. Shang Guandandan's movements are slow and elegant, as if she is just waking up from another lazy morning in Jiaofang Palace. Her eyes are flowing, and there is a hint of light in her gaze. Traveling through 2,000 years of time, one's mind seems to have fallen into a kaleidoscope-like vortex of time and space. Is this, the Queen of Essence or something like that? Qin Yinan thought of a scene in the movie Ghost blowing the lamp that she had watched. The feeling of a blurry fantasy was like this, but the girl in front of him was more elegant and noble. The temperament is completely different. What is the Jingzhou Queen? Shang Guandandan asked softly. Jingzhou, Lu Chang'an said. The Jingzhou Kingdom, one of the 36 kingdoms in the western region. Right. Shang Guandandan glanced at Qin Yinan and said nothing. A queen of one of the many small countries under the jurisdiction of the Western Region Protectorate? What it is? Are you relieved now? There's no danger, right? Don't stay in the coffin all the time in the future, Lu Chang'an reminded her out of kindness. Shang Guandandan glanced at Qin Yinan's chest, then at Lu Chang'an, and nodded with some understanding. I've known it for a long time. In return, you visit the nanny more often. Lu Chang'an's mood is still very stable. Lu Chang'an just felt that his mood seemed to be slightly ups and downs. Lu Chang'an gradually felt that his emotions did not need to be controlled deliberately. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pushed Shang Guandandan back into the coffin. Shang Guandandan danced and held his own crown, shouting. Lu Chang'an grabbed the coffin cover and pulled hard, closing the coffin. What did she mean? Qin Yan'an pointed to the coffin with an excited expression. Nanny, lucky nanny. The wet nurse she is talking about refers to a woman with relatively large breasts, not a wet nurse as a professional status, Lu Chang'an explained calmly. Shang Guandandan no longer needs to come out. Even if Lu Chang'an becomes the notorious when I was an emperor, I didn't have this kind of fun. That's not the point. Qin Yan'an's cheeks turned red in disbelief. It happened a long time ago, don't worry about it. Lu Chang'an looked at Qin Yan'an strangely again. Why do you care so much? Qin Yan'an's cheeks bulged and turned red. She snorted heavily and turned around. Old Mrs. Lu has lived for so long, so of course he won't be alone all the time. What's more, he also has a girlfriend now. Why should he care about this? Besides, wasn't he young master yet before? It wasn't common for young masters in the old days to have sex with nannies. Oh, the nanny he was talking about was a woman with big breasts. Thinking of this, Qin Yan'an suddenly understood, that what Shang Guandandan meant was that Lu Chang'an was very interested in Qin Yan'an. Qin Yan'an then turned around and glanced at Lu Chang'an suspiciously. It wasn't like that. Sometimes he would avoid touching his chest accidentally, and sometimes he would accidentally hug his arm. He pumped very quickly. Recommend a book called The Natives of This World Are So Fierce, which tells the story of how Max managed to stay afloat during a world crisis, and how an ancient swindler organization successfully whitewashed its reputation and rose to prominence. As long as it is an intelligent creature that can think, there is nothing that cannot be deceived. Lame. Those who are unreasonable have no choice but to be disabled. Thank you all for your support. Xiahua is busy applying for a new ID card and temporary ID card today. What could have been solved in 10 minutes has taken a long time. Tomorrow, I will write another 10,000 words to give back to everyone. If I don't have 10,000 words tomorrow, I'll be too busy chirping.